Hello, everyone. It's Francis Widdowson here. I'm coming to you from Victoria, British Columbia, and we're going in. Piss off, University of Victoria. We're going into your campus at 12:30 p.m. in front of the McPherson Library, which is also close to the Sacred Fire and the Survivor's Flag, what's called the Survivor's Flag. These two instruments, these two areas are propagandistic elements that the University of Victoria has put in place. This will not work at an academic institution to have those kinds of symbols playing such a dominant role in what's happening. And what I just wanted to do is just give a brief message to people who are listening to this video. My purpose here is to restore the universities to academic spaces where you can have a free, open, and honest exchange of ideas. That's what universities are supposed to be about. Universities of Victoria, as we're seeing now with the university's attempts to prevent people from coming onto campus, they're making claims, managerial. It's like the claims of the professional managerial class that they're in control of their brand and they're going to control what happens. They're controlling what is happening in their interest to the detriment of trying to understand things. And so what we want to be able to do is discuss all claims. All ideas should be accessible to people, especially in universities, because if you don't have access to all ideas, freedom of thought will be destroyed, because you don't have to accept those ideas. You can reject them, but you have to have an understanding that those ideas exist. And in terms of the idea that I want to talk about, which I think is doing great harm to us as human beings, is the claim that 215 children have been buried in the Kamloops apple orchard. That's the claim. And UVic, University of Victoria, has been perpetuating that false claim for the last 4.5 years. And they have not retracted that claim. And I am calling upon the president of University of Victoria to make a public statement about how there is no evidence for that claim, and that they now withdraw all the propagandistic types of actions that they've been doing for the last 4.5 years. And as a continuation of this propaganda is what's called the Survivor's Flag, which was put up to replace the banners, the 215 plus banners that have been put up around campus in response to the false claim about the 215 children being buried in the apple orchard. As well, there's the sacred fire that burnt for 4 days, which was helped by the fire keepers and so on, in honor of the 215 children who had died at the Kamloops Indian Residential School. So all of those claims were false. We need to have a reckoning. We need to have understanding that there's no evidence for those claims. And it's highly improbable that there are children buried in the Kamloops apple orchard, because not one parent has said that their child went missing from the Kamloops Indian Residential School. So my attempt to discuss this is not controversial. It is just what would be happening if University of Victoria were a normal academic institution, but it's not. So for people who are opposing me for one reason or another, do you think that you should have an academic institution or not? If you don't, well, I guess you're going to oppose me. But if you think that an academic institution should exist, well, come and have a discussion about this, even if you think that there is evidence for this claim. So that's the purpose of what we're going to be doing. I think that the idea that I have is a true one, which is that there's no evidence for this, and we should not believe things for which there's no evidence. That's essentially the position. So, and University of Victoria, I'm not having an event. I'm just going onto the campus with my billboards. One says, what remains? 215, every child matters. So are there any remains at Kamloops? And the other one is denial or truth, which has a picture of Dallas Brody with the zero bodies sign in front of the misinformation billboard saying 215 with two handprints and two footprints and every child matters. So that billboard was messaging about the remains of children being found at Kamloops, and Dallas Brody was just trying to correct the record and draw attention to the fact that this billboard was misinformation. But of course, it's the billboard that was false, and I don't understand why people were getting upset at Dallas Brody for just drawing attention to the fact that this is the case. So that's the plan. Piss off University of Victoria. It's not going to work what you're trying to do, which is your professional managerial midwits coming in and trying to control things and so on. If you want to arrest me, go ahead, arrest me. And then we'll talk about all the ridiculous things that your institution has been doing over the last four and a half years and how you're not an academic institution anymore. The worst thing you've done is on your library website, where you have a librarian. It's hard to even consider him to be this because he's an activist. His name is Justin, and I believe his last name is Harrison. He's doing this project, which is funded with public money, to combat what he calls residential school denialism, which, according to him, is this distortion of facts that's occurring, which includes when you deny the validity of the memories of the survivors. What these quote unquote survivors, which of course we shouldn't accept that terminology of survivor. This is not a genocide, what happened at the Kamloops Indian Residential School. There were some problems with that school, undoubtedly, but they had a reunion in 1977 where a whole bunch of people showed up and rubbed shoulders with their supposed concentration camp guards. And, everyone had a great time talking about the good old days. And you had dance troupes who went to Mexico, and you had a swimming pool where people were were given swimming lessons. And you have the film in 1962 called The Eyes of Children, which gives one a little bit of a sense of what life was like at this school. So this doesn't make sense to talk about people who were survivors from the Kamloops Indian Residential School. This has not got any kind of equivalence to the Holocaust. Anyway, and to Aboriginal people who are listening to this video who are really taking issue with me, you deserve the truth. You deserve honesty. You're not getting that. You're being manipulated by the Aboriginal industry, which is extracting billions of dollars every year. And instead of that money going in to solve the terrible problems in the isolated Aboriginal communities, it's going to lawyers and consultants who are fomenting grievances so that money can continue to be diverted in that fashion. So I have too much respect for you to allow this lie to continue to be perpetuated at your expense. So why don't you come to the University of Victoria? I realize there's going to be some people who are not going to be able to resist the drumming and so on that goes on, but let's hope that just has a ceremonial character. We can have that for 10, 15 minutes or whatever you want to do. But after you tire yourselves out with the drumming, let's have a discussion in street epistemology style, spectrum street epistemology, where you put forward the claim the remains of 215 children have been found, and say, are you on the neutral mat? Are you on the strongly agree, strongly disagree? And why are you on that mat? What evidence do you have to support that? And what evidence would you need to move yourself to a more certain or a less certain position, because that is it's not about who's right and who's wrong. It's about what evidence do you have to support your claims. Anyway, that's what's happening. So there's no way University of Victoria is going to get away with what it's doing. Our universities are incredibly important institutions, and that's what I see myself as doing. I'm going around the country to go into these institutions, to have dialogues, questions raised. People can ask me questions. I'm completely accountable, completely transparent in what I'm doing, and we'll see what happens. So I'm really looking forward to going back to my campus that I was on for 5 years. I was at the University of Victoria between 1987 and 1992. I received my Master of Arts from there. I worked with great professors, Jeremy Wilson, Norman Ruff. They were all about open inquiry. And I want to restore what was my campus to being an academic institution once more. So we're going to be in front of the McPherson Library at 12:30 p.m. I hope to see you all there. Have a great day.